June 19th, 1865, freedom was announced, okay? But nobody told the folks they announced freedom to. They didn't tell them for 2.5 years. And when they finally heard it, they walked out with nothing but themselves. This is what we celebrate on Juneteenth, all right? And so when the slaves were freed, they walked out with nothing but themselves. So the question that I've been sitting on and ruminating on this week as I reflect on Juneteenth, what does it actually require? What does it actually take to be free? Not by announcement, not somebody proclaiming that you're free, and not free on paper, but cellularly, in your body free. I don't think most of us, Mimi, have been taught that freedom. And I think that's exactly why the current political moment in America, and maybe in different places around the globe, if not everywhere, right? That's exactly why the current political moment is hitting the way it is. And please stay with me. Like I said, this is the most important thing that I have taught all week. And the question I've been sitting on this whole week leading to tomorrow, which is a celebration that Black folks celebrate in America, is the one I just gave you. What does freedom actually require? And I want to give 3 answers tonight because each one goes deeper than the first, Mimi, okay? The first freedom is, and I'm looking over to the side because my chat is, so forgive me for focusing on the chat. The first freedom is what Juneteenth announced. Legal freedom, right? Political freedom. The law recognizes your humanity, maybe. Rights are codified in the law. You can vote. Well, it used to be everybody could vote for who they wanted. You can own property if you have the money, right? You can walk through certain doors if you behave a certain way, right? That matters. Black folks fought and bled and died for that. And I'm not minimizing any of that, although I really did, because these times are really different that we live in. The people who heard, well, who saw General Granger, that was a lieutenant, or that was a general that put the order on that church door in Galveston, Texas, and you live in Dallas. You know, that order was read in Galveston on June 19th, 1865. And their nervous systems, the folks that read it, the Black folks that heard and read this message, their nervous systems did not update based on that announcement. It wasn't like, oh, all right, we're free, let's book it down. No, because your nervous system does not operate on information such as that. It operates on experience, Mimi. And the experience of Black people in America for 400 years was not an experience of safety. It was the experience of constant vigilance, constant bracing, constant assessment. Am I safe here? I've even asked myself that question when I worked in academia. It was always, as a professor, different spaces I went in to do different things. Am I safe here? And that experience does not leave the body because a proclamation says it should, right? It stays, it gets passed down, it shows up in hypertension rates and maternal mortality rates and stress biomarkers in the body. The body is keeping score that no law has yet addressed. Legal freedom changed the category. It has not changed the cellular experience. So Mimi, you live in Dallas. I'm so glad you're here. If you want to put a comment in there, tell me where in your body do you feel the current political moment right now? Is it in your jaw, your chest, your stomach? If you feel the current political moment in your body anywhere, please share it in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. All right. Okay. So the first freedom is the freedom that's information and policy or law. The second freedom is what most liberation work focus on, and it's deeper than legal. It's the freedom that comes when you recognize and name the lie, Mimi. Because here's what racism really did. It didn't just restrict your political movement. It got inside your head. It got inside our head. And it gets inside your sense of what you deserve, what you're capable of, whether your intuition is trustworthy, and whether your knowing is legitimate, whether you are allowed to take up space. The most insidious work of oppression is not what it does to you from the outside, but what it eventually convinces you to do to yourself from the inside. And I call this the ivory tower effect, okay? And I don't just mean the academic institution where I worked for 2.5 decades before I left. Although I know that personally, right? The ivory tower can be a workplace, a family system, a religious structure, a relationship, any institution or system that required you to make yourself smaller to be accepted, and then convinced you that smallness was your actual size. This is cognitive freedom, right? Cognitive freedom is recognizing the cage, naming it, stopping the self-abandonment. And this is part of the power of release, right? And it's a real transformative work. It changes something. But I have a question for you. Have you ever had a breakthrough, like a real breakthrough, and still felt the tightness the next morning, right? Still was tense in the shoulders and the jaw, still was looking around with that low hum of vigilance before you've had even a single reason to be afraid for the day. That is because the breakthrough happened in our mind, but the body did not get the memo. So the first freedom is that which is written into policy. Second freedom is actually cognitive freedom, where you remove yourself from an environment or try to change something, right? But that breakthrough, like I said, is in the mind. That's psychological freedom. But the body does not get the memo sometimes, because you can't think your way out of what the body is holding. It doesn't work like that. The cognitive breakthrough opens the door, which is really important to have that door open. The embodied practice walks you through the door, right? And that's in the power of release called the reframe, the reframing. What are you releasing into? Okay? And so another question you might reflect on is, have you ever had a major breakthrough, spiritual, therapeutic, whatever, and the next day your body was still in the same pattern? If that has happened, please type yes or not. You don't have to put a comment in there. But if it happened, let me know if you can relate to that major breakthrough. And the next day your body was still tight. And so the third freedom that you don't ever really hear about, never, really ever, and that is the one that makes everything else possible. It's called self-sovereignty. Freedom that lives in the nervous system, in the tissues of the body, in the breath, in the cellular, vibrational, embodied experience of being who you actually are. Yes, thank you, Mimi. Not who the system needed you to be. And I speak this from lived experience in releasing and reframing everything that I'm telling you now. Okay? So it's not about self-sovereignty is not about, I don't know, territory. Sovereignty is about land. It's not about that. It's about not being who the system needed and wanted you to be. And this is not an idea. This is not an affirmation. This is a physiological state that is available to you, to all of us. And getting there requires working at a different level the body actually responds to. Working, it takes work. And this is working at a level the body responds to, which is experience. That's practice and repetition. A different felt sense, repeated until it becomes a new baseline. And here is the piece that changed everything for me in what my walk. The thing you are claiming, the thing you're reclaiming is not something new. It is something original, right? I know in the tradition of Kemet, the ancient Kemet, which we call Egypt, which called itself the Black Land. Hi, I am Keys, which called itself the Black Land, understood the human body as a cosmic instrument, a receiver. They understood melanin, which we all have, the pigment that gives Black folks their skin, but melanin lives in neuromelanin in the brain, all types of melanin that we all have. But it was understood in ancient times as a cosmic instrument, a receiver. They understood it in its depth and range as a biochemical conductor. Again, I say that we all have. And it was an antenna for the universal intelligence, the divine intelligence. So your skin, particularly for Black folks who wear their melanin on their bodies as well as in their brains and neuromelanin and all types of melanin around our organs and in our body, that is not the target. The skin is not a target. It's a technology. And the systems that have spent centuries teaching Black people to be ashamed of their melanin were afraid of exactly that truth. Self-sovereignty is the practice of coming back into alignment with what you, bars on the tech, okay. Self-sovereignty is the practice of coming back, thank you, I'm Keys, of coming back into alignment with what you already have and what who you are already at the deepest cellular level. You are not a deficit. You are an antennae. And I will tell you that melanin is in everyone's body, and melanin is a source of evolutionary spiritual power for everyone. And that is what Bruce Bynum talks about in his books, particularly one about the African unconsciousness and dark light consciousness. It's an evolutionary technology that we have not been told to harness, right? To understand.